you wanted to mention some things regarding a tax on Proposition 13. And to set this up for the audience, let me just mention, you can get a wealth of information. I'm no expert on these matters, but I found it very, very instructional. From the Howard Jarvis Taxpayers Association website, which tells you all about Proposition 13, how it got started. It goes all the way back to '78. And it explained basically the same point that you wanted to make, that there have been continued attacks on this proposition for a variety of reasons. And you wanted to talk about some, I presume, of some of the latest attacks, and what you think about them.
The reality is that government, as we mentioned, is big and is always wanting to get bigger. And the way government gets bigger is by getting more revenue. Mm-hmm. And so, of course, that's really what the real fight in the beginning was of Prop 13. Proposition 13 sought to then cap the amount of property tax on people's property. And so then you could, the tax would not float then up with the value of the property as it increased. And because basically what was happening is people were being priced out of their homes.
Yes.
And so Prop 13 then was brought to the state of California. California supported that. Similar laws to Prop 13 have now cropped up amongst just about every state. And it's a very important law, because what it means is then that there's a revenue for the state or for local governments at that point that is steady. It doesn't go up and down with property values. And it's reasonable in the sense that it can go up 2% per year, which is a reasonable increase. Whereas if property values all of a sudden spike 10%, my property tax doesn't spike 10%. And that's important, again, for people to know that there's a continuity, there's a consistency to what I'm paying. As a result of that, government sometimes says, well, we're just not getting enough of that money. Mm. And so there's always a tax as to whether that's fair, whether we should be doing it that way. Because, again, people would think government needs more money. I think most people who are attacking Prop 13 realize that they can't attack the homeowner side of it. They can't attack the fact that we're going to keep homeowners to the potential of losing their homes because of property values increase. Where you see most of the attacks are on what we call split roll. And that is, well, let's protect homeowners, but on business properties, let's go ahead, in commercial properties, let's let that property value float. And then we'll adjust those property taxes every year based upon the value of those properties. Okay. Unfortunately, the disconnect with that is you can't, business people who own properties receive the ability to pay that business that property tax based upon their use of that property. Mm-hmm. And so if somebody owns a strip mall over here in the corner, and they've got a Dunkin' Donuts in it and a laundromat and all those other kinds of things that go on that, and they have that, and their property values start going up, and then they were going to get a large increase on their property tax as a result of that value. Well, what happens? Well, they have to pass that on to their tenants. Well, again, what does their tenant do? Their tenant goes ahead and passes it on to the guy who's buying the donuts, or the guy who's getting his car or his laundry done. And so the idea is, so you can't really just separate it and say the average Californian doesn't pay that. Yeah, they do. They do that. They pay that. They pay it through the high cost. Right. The other issue you've got is California is already a high tax state, and businesses already struggle here in California. And so you got a manufacturer who all of a sudden gets their property tax increased every year because of some new equipment that they bought or whatever else they might be doing to create value. And all of a sudden, again, they end up having to pay a higher tax, and they end up looking at another state to say, hey, look, California, you're pricing me out of your state. I'm going to have to go somewhere else. And so those are why it is, I believe, that Prop 13 is good, and Prop 13 is good when it's applied to homeowners and when it's applied to commercial and business properties.